I've never worked in Japan. I mean, I work in Japan, but I work from my home, and I've never needed Japanese language or workplace skills. But I do know people who have, so I set up interviews with 8 of them to see what their experiences were like. All of them worked in the real Japanese workplace, from small, modern companies to big traditional ones. Or in other words, they worked jobs that didn't involve teaching English. They were required to be proficient in the Japanese language and business culture. All the interviewees speak English, have lived outside of Japan for some period of time, and have university degrees. So these are not your typical Japanese workers, let's just be clear on that. But I think they do help give insight into what it's like working in Japan and how it compares to working in a global or Western workplace. Alright, let me introduce you to our subjects.
Hi, I'm Miki, and I'm a Japanese teacher, and I'm teaching Japanese for international students.
Hi, my name is Kazu. I've got a BA of chemistry.
Well, my name is Yuko, and I live in Tokyo. I went to university in Japan, and I studied early childhood education.
Hey, I'm Yuta. I'm from Okayama, and I studied a lot of things in university, like literature, philosophy.
So my name is Angela, and I'm from New Zealand. I did a double major in psychology and Japanese at university.
I'm Daichi from Tokyo. I run design at the university.
My name is Ivy. I'm from Taiwan. I studied international relations, like politics and stuff. Yeah, and I kind of minored in like hospitality and tourism.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm from Los Angeles, and I studied economics, Japanese, and anthropology.
Like if you could just choose what era you entered the workforce, when would you like to be entering?
I don't know, maybe before bubble. I don't know bubble.
The bubble was the height of the Japanese economy, and the bursting of it in the early 90s was akin to the Great Depression.
So I heard at the bubble age, they used, 1万円 as 1000 yen. You know what I mean? Wow.
Was it hard finding a job at that time when you...
Oh no, it was pretty easy because that time it's, let's say, bubble economy. After 1 year later, it was difficult to find. So my 1 or 2 years younger than me, those people are difficult, tough time to find job.
I graduated from a very small women's university, and it's kind of tough to get a job. Yeah, and so my father asked one of the company to let me in. And that was, I just did paperwork. It was so boring.
If you've ever heard the term OL, that's what Mickey was, office lady. I questioned them about the roles of women versus men in the 90s workplace.
At that time, the female and the male were totally different. Actually, from the interview stage, actually already separate. The company needs male employees as a multiple task employee, and for female, they're only for the desk work. Probably the salary is also different.
Women are only to help men, right? Just assistant, and they are all young, like early 20s, and they maybe 2 years, 3 years later they entered the company, they got married and quit, and that was the style maybe of 20 years ago.
Did any of those women, did they ever move up?
No, not at all. It's the same work. It's when they are hired, it's divided. It's for women. They even don't call us women, girls. Yeah.
What are the men called then? Are they called boys or are they called men?
Men. They didn't treat me as co-workers. They treated us just assistant or girls, you know. They are nice, but it's just assistant.
Japan is famous, or infamous, for their work hours. I wondered what it was like in the 90s.
I left my office at 5:30 every day. I was lucky.
Lucky. So
I was lucky because my other friends at the same age, they worked like over 9 p.m. or something.
similar type job though, like assistant type job?
Yes, it's similar assistant type job. I don't know why.
Job time is it's about from 9 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. That is their working time. But normally, most of the case, the workers extend until 7, 8 p.m. Then they go back.
Well, at that Japanese daycare center, I had to wake up like 5 o'clock in the morning because I had to travel 2 hours from my home to that place and start from 7:30. And also I could go home with the last train, so it means midnight, because we need to keep the kids until 6 or 7 o'clock. After all the kids gone, then we have to prepare for next day and also have to prepare for the event and also the cleanup and washing, laundry, everything. I asked to that senior and that senior said, oh, okay, we finished, but this teacher hasn't finished yet. Okay, so let's wait for her. Let's chat. Let's grab some potato chips, talk. Then everybody will stay until 10 o'clock. Myself, no, deep inside myself, I wanted to go home. Yeah, and I was feeling like betraying the older or lack of respect to older people. That's kind of a Japanese culture thing that I felt very sorry if I leave the school. What if other teachers are doing stuff? I hesitated to leave just only myself. So always I had to ask, especially to senior teachers, that can I go? Or do you need my hand? So it really depends on the senior teacher says, okay, you can go, then I can go. Or boss, of course. And that's daily basis. So in that case, the school doesn't pay us overwork. But like special event is already planned from the beginning of the year, then school, okay, because it's like sports day is coming over. We have to prepare for that and that. And obviously we need like 2 hours and 3 hours extra time. Then payable, but not usual daily time.
Part of the bargain for being so dedicated to the job was that your employer guaranteed you that job for life.
Used to be, they could trust company because company protect you whole your life, can keep you whole life. That's why people could trust the company. But they say company, okay, hire you. Oh, sorry, our company is getting crisis, so fire. And then, okay, how come I have to trust the company? Because they don't protect us. Then becomes more cool. Deny, I don't want to join the NOMIKAI. More important is my family and friends. Bye-bye. That kind of society changing.
Previous time, people thought once they get job, they will work for that same company, the only one company, whole working life. But these days, especially for probably younger generation, because they have a lot of opportunities. So their thinking is a little bit changing.
These days, it's probably difficult to find full-time job.
Do people have a good chance of finding a good job, do you think?
No, it's harder, I guess.
Like my father generation, the employee had to die for the company. That kind of concept people had. So any excuse was accepted. Okay, I have to, because my boss said that, so I cannot go home. Even though wife complained, well, that's the way it is. Younger generation can say no and can, well, if they don't want to do, they can say no, and also they can have time with their friends or the family after work. So I think it's changing, but I'm not really sure about the future because the financial crisis issue is going on too. Because back in time, company pay a lot of money because it's bubble period. But in near future or the further future, it's difficult to say I don't know, how financial issue crisis is going on. And maybe younger generation people have to work more and maybe changing back to 20, 30 years ago back. It's difficult to say.
I think my dad generation, they are, because my mom, she was, not do you know, homemaker. She didn't have a job, and I am teaching Japanese, but this is part-time job, and I cannot live with only this job. The salary, it's not so good. So, well, sometimes I think my generation is the last generation to be homemaker. And my daughter's generation, maybe she definitely need her own job, I guess. Everything is changing, I guess, because Japanese economy is long, black hole みたいな感じでしょ、ずーっと。ね、so yeah, I really want my daughter to make money by her own, by herself.
So what's it like looking for a job right now?
They can ask anything. They can ask if you have health conditions. They can ask if you're married or not. They can ask if you're religious. They can ask like the most personal questions that you can think of. They have the right to ask. Like in my interview, I've been asked, "Do you have a girlfriend?" I was like, "Why?" They're like, "We just want to know," and they have the right to ask it. So, yeah, anything flies. I guess for me, now that I'm interviewing people, it's good because I can get to know these people 100% before I actually hire them. So yeah, you can ask the age as well. Age is definitely is you can ask about that. Actually, if you know what Japanese resumes, right? It's required always to have a picture. Yeah. You have every picture, so a lot of times you can actually just hire people based upon whether or not she's beautiful or not, which is something that people do actually. And there's no such thing as a suing someone for that here. Unlike in America, you can just sue, for anything almost. So I guess you can kind of hire people based upon looks too here.
Major is not so important.
Just the name of the university?
Yeah, name of the university.
Okay.
Because the company will train them after entering company.
What's my degree name? Hold on.
When you first enter, they don't really expect you to know everything, so they want to train you and kind of raise you up, I guess, yeah. That's a good thing in Japanese companies. So not many people get fired. So for example, I didn't know how to sell a product, but because they want to teach me and raise me up, I guess, they would let me follow my manager around and just see how he does his work.
to take about half years. We are gradually making, how to say, it Japanese businessman. Probably the most of the company that such kind of training terms is getting shorter, maybe 1 or 2 months.
Training for is like depends on the person. If you're someone skillful, you can get a low, maybe in a month, or even like some of them very skillful in 2 weeks. So, but someone takes it like a few months.
Even though it's fairly easy to find a job in Japan, the unemployment rate is less than 3%, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a job with the employment status you desire.
So I guess there's kind of like 4 or 5 employment status differences here in Japan. So you kind of have your full-time position, which is seishain. You have your contract position, which are typically like 1 year. And a lot of times those contracts are renewable. Actually, it will say on the job description, like 1 year renewable. And if it says renewable, a lot of times those are renewable unless you just mess up completely. Another job type is part-time. Part-time would usually be for like a McDonald's worker, or I guess if you're working part-time as an English teacher, for example. Those are usually hourly wages. Another type is just freelance. So freelance just meaning you take money on the project kind of basis. And the last I think would be called like a temporary worker. A temporary worker means like a lot of these companies nowadays in Japan have temporary positions that are opened up for a temporary amount of time. And so you're not guaranteed anything past that time. So a temporary worker may be placed in a company for like a year. And then typically after that year, sometimes you could get promoted to a full-time position if you do really, really well. But nothing is guaranteed after that 1 year. So those are actually the most difficult kind of positions that people want to enter. They really normally don't want to. But for those temporary positions, you're actually not finding those yourselves. There's actually companies in Japan called, they do temporary recruitment. So they literally find a bunch of temporary jobs. You're kind of put into this temporary employee pool, and this company just kind of chooses you as those jobs come in and then place you. So I guess it's a little bit weird because you might be in one company for 1 year, another company for 3 months, next company for 3 months. But a lot of times you do have some kind of job lined up for you next because you're a part of this company temporary pool, I guess, so to speak. So it's not as temporary as you may think it is. For example, like Facebook, for example, is one of those companies that does a lot of temporary hires. They kind of hire you for a year or maybe 3 months, and they just kind of let you go if you don't perform.
I myself prefer to be not to be shain, but to be haken shain or the arubaito, because shain sometimes overwork but no pay.
My contract is like at the 3 months, always like a contract each 3 months and the maximum to the 3 years.
Okay, and then what about the how many hours do you actually work in a day? What kind of breaks do you get?
Like work like 8 hours, stay in the company 10 hours, because like including like the break time and the lunch break.
Alright, so what's it really like to work in a Japanese company?
I had no idea what it was going to be like. I guess when I first went in, what I was really surprised about was how cramped the office was. You don't have your own cubicle, so everyone's just like sitting on the same desk. So your manager or something would be right next to you. Like you have no wall separating you from each other, yeah. And another thing that I found really surprising was, I guess, when you go to work in the mornings or when you leave work, you have to, in a big voice, you have to say, good morning, like, ohayou gozaimasu, or itekimasu, like, I'm going somewhere, or osaki ni shitsurei shimasu, which means I'm going to go home first, kind of thing. I felt that kind of weird because you had to, tell the whole office, bye, or good morning, and that was a bit strange for me.
My first company was very, very Japanese. So we had a lot of foreigners, but everything was dealt in a very Japanese way. Everything was really strict. So it took me around like a year and a half to get used to it.
It's very Japanese in the sense that they have a bunch of rules set out, such as before you leave the office, your desk table area needs to be 100% clean. You can't leave anything on your desk. Chairs can't be outside of the desk. They need to be actually pushed into the desk. And basically, as the Japanese say, right, leave it the way that you found it.
Every day before I go home, I have to send out like this daily report of what I did. Everything had to be like recorded in a very meticulous manner.
We need to pre-meeting or pre-decision before decision. To make decision, we can decide in under the table. So that is very Japanese culture, I guess.
They can be a little slow in terms of using new technologies, and especially maybe compared to like American tech companies. So if you have that kind of background, you can be a little bit frustrated because there's always like every day there's some new technologies and new way of doing things, but maybe your Japanese company can be a little more cautious about using new technologies. You can expect to use a lot of like Excel and Microsoft Words.
Meetings were very long, like 4 or 5 hours, because Japanese people are very detailed, and before the meetings, they'll write down like, okay, for 15 minutes, we'll talk about this. For 25 minutes, we'll talk about this. For 35 minutes, we'll talk about this. So yeah, that was very hard for me to get used to, because I'm used to meetings being just like 20, 30 minutes, like everything just goes really fast.
We have meetings actually every Monday and Friday. Monday basically say what you're going to do for the week. Friday basically saying what you did and how it worked, and what you plan on doing next week.
There's a hierarchy, so it's hard to express your full opinions. It's hard to express what you actually think, but that just might be the very Japanese side of me.
They have that kind of, I guess, age hierarchy system still in place, where a 27-year-old should not be making more than a 45-year-old in general within the same industry, in the same company, I mean.
The senior was everything. They decide, not just only boss, but the older or came into the facility before me. So the old, I think it's more age or experience is more, has more power.
And I think some of the negatives, cons, would be that I guess if you do want to be an individual, you do want to have that responsibility, you're typically not going to be given that kind of individualism, I guess, within the company. As well as if you're not like very high up in the company hierarchy, your opinion won't mean that much. So you can speak up in your meetings, but at the end of the day, your hiring bosses probably won't listen to you. And I think that's something very different from the Western side, where they kind of feel like it's more effective to have more of a flat structure, where everyone feels important, that they have their own unique skill that can add to the company. And they kind of feel motivated in the fact that if you do succeed, you could get a promotion, a salary raise within the next, promotional phase or review, I guess. In a Japanese sense, it's typically not going to happen that fast.
Westerners may find that working with and doing business with Japanese people is more art than science.
And the Japanese yes, it's not yes sometimes.
So how do you know it's a yes? Does it have to, like, if you write it on paper and stamp, then it's a yes?
Yes, そうじゃない? But
verbal
oral, yeah, verbal yes, sometimes it's not. And the Japanese maybe is 80% no. Yeah.
I think in general, the way Japanese people communicate can be very different from how Western people tend to communicate, which is less direct confrontations. So, for example, if you disagree with your boss in your country, you might say, "Oh, I disagree. I think this is a better way." But if you do that in very traditional Japanese companies, in a very traditional Japanese company, that might cause a little bit of awkwardness or trouble. So maybe you would want to go about, "Oh, I think I appreciate your idea, but maybe I think this way could bring you more results and something like that. So the way you communicate is very different. And because I have hired many Western people, especially American people, and I saw a little bit of culture conflict like a daily in my company, and that was pretty interesting because American people tend to be more direct. If they don't agree, they want to express it. But some of them speak good English, and some of them have better understanding of Japanese culture. But the other ones, they weren't as familiar with the Japanese culture. So I saw people getting frustrated because they didn't know how to convey what they wanted to say with Japanese.
So typically when a Japanese person does business with a Japanese person, from my experience, it's very formal in the office. Kind of get the basic introductions down, get their needs, find out how to best suit those needs. But usually in my experience, nothing was ever actually formalized within the office. So everything seemed kind of actually far away from the business deal actually going down. And typically, if they're interested, you kind of want to cater towards them to feel more comfortable around you. And it's because Japanese people tend to be more shy and tend to be a little bit more, I guess, distanced from you. The nomikai, or the Japanese bar drinking scenes, is kind of where you basically close that gap and you feel that connection between your client, and they kind of ask you more personal questions as well as more detailed questions that they may not have asked within the office. And typically, a lot of times, you kind of get an informal yes during the nomikai section.
And nomikai can be quite useful. Drinking together is generally a good way of talking to somebody, and if you want to say something honest, drinking together might be a good way.
Keigo was really hard for me to get used to, but my boss was really nice to me because obviously I'm a foreigner. I wasn't born speaking Japanese, so he was kind of lenient on that. I wasn't rude, but if I didn't use Keigo, it's fine. So that was good.
We previously talked about what the hours were like in the 90s, but I wanted to hear about what present-day working hours were like.
So on a normal day, I would go to work around 8 a.m. and finish around probably same time, 8 p.m.
I was one of the 2 foreigners in our branch. So the other Japanese people, maybe they were engineers or salespeople, maybe they had more workload than me. But some of them would stay till 1 or 2, and then I would still see them sending out emails at 3 or 4 in the morning, and then they come to the office at 6 or 7. I'm like, do you ever sleep? I don't know. I don't understand how they do that. Yeah, but they work really, really hard, and they do get a lot of work done. So.
Was it yourself and the other foreigners would kind of go home on time as long as their work was done, but the Japanese would just stay late?
Yeah. And at first it was kind of hard. I feel bad for, me leaving on the dot, but, if you look at it, I already finished my work. I literally have nothing else to do that day. So at first it was hard for me to leave while other people are still there, but me and the other foreigner we'd leave together. So, it would be kind of easier.
Until 5 o'clock, there are many emails and telephone calls. So after 5 p.m., it's easy. Actually, I can concentrate my job. So that's why I stay at the desk and work until 7 or 8.
I would like to say I was productive, but yeah, I would like to say I was productive, but of course, there are places where you can slack off and you would still get, the same pay at the end of the month. But because everyone else would leave, my superiors or my managers would leave around 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. And because, they didn't leave, it's quite hard for me not to leave. It's quite hard for me to leave early, I guess. So I officially finish work at 6, but Japanese never go home on the dot. So you kind of have to pretend you're busy, I guess. But sometimes I did have a lot of work, and I would do it until 8.
The US people has a better capability for time management. So they're very much concentrate until that's such kind of the 9 to 5 working time. So that's why maybe they can do that. They would go outside just 5 o'clock.
Japan and Japanese culture, society expects like the perfect service. The customer, expect that from the big company even, That's why we work hard. I'm super lucky still because my the contract is no overwork usually. When I gotta finish the work and then I can go home, but the different contract, regular people are usually stay company for few hours every single day without thinking. Just they educate themselves, that's normal. That's hard.
It really depends on the industry and on the company as well. And in the IT industry, actually people tend to work long hours. But I was able to not work long hours, partly because I chose companies where I didn't have to work long hours. I didn't like working overtime. So that's actually something I did consciously to avoid working long hours.
It's changing. Yeah, nowadays if you finish your work, just go home. Or sometimes the company order to leave at least 9 p.m. They shut down their lights, computer, or it's changing.
Well, a lot of people have this idea that Japanese people work crazy hours, right? Which is true, but my boss is very lenient on that matter as well. So if you finish your job, then at 6 you can go, kind of thing. But I kind of feel like it's more like a mindset. As a foreigner, I don't feel like I'm obligated to stay longer. But Japanese people, they may feel like the boss is still there, then he or she has to stay there. But I would always finish my work, just leave at 6 or 7. Sometimes leave on the dot if I really finish off my work. So I didn't really experience the long hours of a Japanese workplace.
Listening to all those experiences can be kind of confusing. Japanese work late, but they don't? It's changing? What's the deal? Well, a large part of it comes down to your employment status. If you're a full-time salaried employee, you don't normally get paid for overtime. And in traditional Japanese companies, you feel an obligation to show you're working hard, and that can often mean working late, whether you're actually being productive or not. With part-timers and contractors, that same expectation is not there, and you generally get paid overtime if you work it. With newer Japanese companies and with younger employees, that working late is working hard attitude isn't as present. Indeed, times are changing, but it's a slow march. Now, let's explore getting time off work.
When I finish work, he would still message me, or in the weekends he would message me and say, why didn't you finish this work, or why didn't you text me back or something? And I would be like, because it's my holiday. But he wouldn't understand that, I guess.
So normal in a Japanese company is 10 paid vacation days. And to be honest, I don't think many people actually take them.
Well, you can get a paid day off, I think around 10, 15, but usually people don't take that many.
Obviously, because I'm living in Japan, and I feel like our boss understands that foreigners need to go back to their home countries. So sometimes I would take long vacations. So that was good, but I would be working all the time still, from my phone and laptop and stuff.
I think one time I tried to take quite a bit off, but my manager said, if you have, what's joshiki? Common sense. If you have common sense, then you wouldn't take, 10 days off in a row. What do you think your team would think, or something like that?
Because if you miss that period, you're kind of giving your work to someone else to finish. And a lot of people don't like giving that responsibility to someone, to give that burden onto someone else.
I've noticed that Japanese people don't really take vacations. Even when they're sick, they come maybe in the afternoon, or they come and work overtime on the weekends or something. Yeah, they can't understand why everything has to be put on hold for 10 days just because you're on a personal vacation. Because in Japan, if you're on a personal vacation, they ask you to, well, I don't know if it's in Japan or like my company or Japanese companies, it's kind of like an unspoken rule that you have to go rent like a Wi-Fi thingy, so you'll have internet access with you at all times. So even if you're not in the office, things won't just stop working, you know, which is a good rule, but can be really stressful sometimes.
I started from 40 days annual leave, but normally, in most of the case, 20s cannot take. Yeah, of course I can take, but nothing much. Actually, normally nobody take the 1 month vacation. Actually, the maximum 2 weeks. Actually, even 2 weeks, we feel very long. It's too long, actually. The 1 week is pretty much enough long for us.
Like,
Every day.
I guess from like, you know, Canadian mind is like, why don't you take the time off? I just can't understand.
It's difficult. Actually, there's no reason, but yeah, really no reason.
Okay.
Nobody forced me, but
Something that can prohibit enjoying your after-work time is NOMIKAI, the drinking party.
So after work, I would have to go with my clients and we would have to go to drinking parties. And sometimes after the drinking party, you go karaoke. So sometimes, I end up going home around 3 or 4 in the morning and then waking up at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. and going back to the office at 8 and pretend nothing happened that night and that you're, genki as ever. Busy periods, I would have that, like 3 days, 4 days consecutive. So that would be really draining for my energy. There were a lot of rules. For example, especially when you drink with your clients, there are a lot of rules that, are just kind of common sense, I guess. For example, when you cheers, so when you kanpai, your glass has to be lower than the clients to show respect. Other things like if you see they're nearly finished their drink, you have to ask them, oh, what would you like next? Just to be more considerate and things like that. Another rule was, I guess, not a rule, but manner. After everyone's left, you have to be the last one there. And because I was the youngest, that was my role. So I would have to be the last one there just to check if no one forgot anything. So if the client, forgot their, cigarettes or a wallet, you have to pick that up and give it to them. Because, sometimes you tend to drink a lot, with the clients, and they might forget something, so you have to be sober yourself. You have to have a responsibility to check everyone's, and that no one's left their belongings behind. Oh, there's always smoke. And after each drinking party, I would smell like smoke all over. Yeah. I think it's a common thing in Japan.
20 years ago, even if you don't like it, you had to drink with your boss. Yeah, but I think recently 20s, like early 20s, they just refused it. I heard it. No, I don't want to go. And that is kind of new to me.
Nowadays, like young generations, like 20s, like they feel like I don't go, But the 30s, 40s, 50s, like what? What's the choice? There, you have no choice. You have to be there. But the 20s, it's like, why? What's the point? It's like, what's the point to pay the 5,000 yen to go to the nomikai for just 2 hours? I don't drink alcohol, for example. So that's some of the people think about it. I don't need to socialize it that much. So in my just my opinions, why don't we go to just after work, ask, in person, go to a bar, spend maybe a few drinks is fine, yeah.
In terms of nomikai, I think younger companies in particular I think they tend to do that less than more traditional Japanese companies. So I didn't really have to go to a lot of nomikai, and I personally don't really like nomikai. So when they ask me to go, I would almost always say no.
And do you think that affected your position at all by not going?
No, not really, not really. Those are young startup companies, so they don't really care about the traditional kind of like a Japanese working culture as much as more traditional companies.
These days, really less. Well, I don't think we have to do it now. But back in time, the atmosphere was telling us, you have to. Yeah. Nobody say have to. So that's something that's changing.
Probably around 10 years ago, after job, we almost every day we went to go to drink before go to home. That is a normal style.
Okay, but nowadays?
No changing. Actually, I go to drink only once a week or once 2 weeks.
It seems like the frequency of and obligation to go to nomikais has lessened over time. Seeing as that has changed, I asked if the gender divide that was quite present in the 90s still existed.
So actually I was the only woman in the sales department, and I was the only woman in the global section as well. So I didn't feel like I was treated any different. I felt like they treated me like a man, actually.
Nomikais, I would go to maybe like once a month. It wasn't crazy. I feel like girls maybe don't have to attend those things as much as the male workers do.
You would drink, yes, but they wouldn't force you to drink too much. But I think because I was a female, so it's kind of power harassment, sexual harassment if they forced you to drink a lot. But for the males, I think they would force each other a bit more.
And there's also this thing called nijikai. Like after the first dinner, you have to go to like a second nomikai and then a third nomikai. I never went to like the second or third ones. I would just like leave after the first one. Sometimes because the boss is like, we want a men's night out. Yeah. Sometimes it's just like, I don't want to drink till 12, so I'll just tell the boss, like I actually want to go home. Can I go home? Yeah. He was very understanding and flexible on those matters. Yeah. So that was okay. But I've heard some of my Taiwanese friends working in Tokyo, they go to nomikais like maybe 3 days out of the week. They drink till like the last train, and then they just like pass out at like a hotel or something and just go to work the next day, which I can't do, but yeah. I did notice one thing. We have like these two people in our company. They're both like 33, 34. One is male, one is female. They both speak 3 languages. They're both like they both are fluent in 3 languages. So for me, they have like the same, skill set. So I would have assumed that they got the same salary, but the guy got maybe Jumon more than the girl. So I'm not sure if that's maybe because he's male or maybe because he's Japanese. I'm not sure, but that's something I noticed.
I would say IT, especially the ones like a startup-ish, smaller companies, they tend to be pretty gender equal. So there's virtually no difference between men and women. As long as you have skills, you can get a job.
So actually in my company, females and males, we didn't get treated differently. It just so happens, I think a lot of other Japanese companies, it just so happens that the females are hired for, a certain role. So it doesn't necessarily mean because they are female, they have to make the tea or stuff like that.
We've all screwed up in the workplace, whether it was to tell a customer the wrong thing or forget an important detail in a presentation. I asked about what happens when you mess things up.
In a general sense, Japanese people don't like to be confrontational. So a lot of times they wouldn't directly actually mention you that they have a problem with you. They just go straight to your boss. and that's kind of how they, I guess, complain about you, which I wish didn't happen, because it'd be so much easier if they just came right to you and we could just resolve it right then.
We actually share that what we were wrong every single morning before start to work. Like we share that like the 5 minutes, like the brainstorming, what we had the problem from that, you know. And we don't say it who did that. We just say it what happened.
So I guess my company was very traditional compared to some of the other companies in Japan right now, but my boss would, when I got in trouble, I guess I had to go in front of the whole office, so I would have to go in front to his desk. His desk is at the very front, and he would tell me off in front of the whole office. And it's quite embarrassing, but I guess in Japanese they say if your superiors are telling you off, it means they still have hope in you. They still expect a lot of things from you. That's why they tell you off. When they don't tell you off anymore, it just means they're fully given up on you, because they don't fire people in Japan usually.
I think in the Japanese office sense, they really like to show their power to everyone. So I messed up one time pretty badly on a translation of a pretty formal document from Japanese to English. And the guy in charge, the number 2 guy in the company, he checked over that translation and he realized that there were a lot of things missing because I didn't really do a great job, honestly. And he kind of yelled at me in front of almost the whole company, which I guess in an American sense would be called, I guess, kind of power harassment, I think. But in a Japanese office sense, I think there's no harassment there technically. I think he, I don't know. I almost started crying, to be honest, but it was quite the experience. For me, like, I kind of took it because I knew I did mess up. So, but I did feel a little bit ashamed, and actually it did work, I guess, in that sense, because after that I never made that mistake again. And I'd always double-check, triple-check my work, because I didn't want to be yelled at again like that. So, yeah. Because in a Japanese office, typically there are no separate offices, right? Separate rooms, right? It's just one big room. So I think in that way, you can't really take someone aside unless you take them outside. But if you take someone outside, maybe everyone would know that you are getting yelled at anyway. So I'm not sure if that's the reason, or if they just don't care. Yeah.
Sometimes things are simply not working out in a company. Or it may be that you've grown all you can and want to move beyond. When, how, and why do people say goodbye?
The seishain sense in the Japanese side is a little bit different than in a Western company. So seishain means a full-time employee. In a Japanese company, typically they won't fire you. But if they really do want to fire you, what they would do is they'll kind of put you in they could lower your salary. They could put you in a bad office. They could relocate you. That's all within their rights. So a lot of times, actually, people would just quit voluntarily if they do kind of, make your life hell in that regards.
I think the traditional Japanese company wasn't for me. I mean, I didn't have enough freedom, and I felt like there's the hierarchy. So I didn't like that.
I started looking at like the statistics of people leaving their jobs after, the first or second year. And I noticed that it's almost always the foreigners leaving that job. No matter, like maybe some of them, they want to go back to their home country. So some of them, they can't take the Japanese workplace. Some of them, they just don't like what they do. They want to change to another industry. But almost, I'd say 90% of these people who quit after their first year are foreigners. Japanese people, I'm not sure, but I kind of get the feeling that it's shameful for you to quit your job. Like, yeah, I've had a friend who he quit his job, and his reason was because this isn't what I was expecting to do. Like, this wasn't my job description, and I feel like my skill sets aren't being utilized in this workplace, so I'm switching jobs. And then apparently he was called very childish, which, I would think is a very mature thing to do because you want to go try something else, right?
If the one guy who worked for the same company less than 3 years, we don't think he is good person for would say, for employee.
For most people, I think it's easy to highlight the cons of working. As such, I wanted to know what the pros were.
Some good things about working in a Japanese company is that they cover everything like insurance, your transportation every morning. Some companies even cover your housing.
That's one of the like kind of benefits from the huge company, you know. That's the one of the thing, like, yeah, a guy like it, like the free accommodations, like the perfect ideas. Yeah,
Okay.
and then also for the company, I think that the employee living around the company is a very important thing for the company, because like if someone like always get late at the work, you actually cannot learn the systems assembling like, you know, the work area.
So maybe the pay is a bit lower, but because of all the other factors, it's actually quite worth it.
I guess the pros are that you do feel like you're part of a team. You know, like your failure is everyone's failure. Your success is everyone's success. And they kind of celebrate that as well. You know, they go to parties, and when they hit, not parties, they have like, throw like a NOMIKAI, a drinking party if you do hit your group goal.
There are, of course, negatives about work life, so I wanted to hear suggestions for improving working conditions.
I feel like a lot of Japanese people feel like they're obligated to work overtime.
If you stay at office longer, you're a better worker. Yeah, that is not true.
Like Japan is such a beautiful country, and like all their products and everything, they're perfect because Japanese people are so detailed oriented. But behind this whole like detailed, this like perfect world that like behind this perfect side that they show to the world, behind that is like, you know, sad, stressed out workers, and it's just if I could, I'd like to change that, and I feel like Japanese people should change that.
If the law has changed, the mind of people is not changed. It will not be changed. Law is law. The important thing is the thoughts or idea or policy of workers.
What I would like to see different, I guess, less drinking parties outside of work, also less overtime. But right now, I think Japan's already on that track, and a lot of the big companies are starting to change.
Maybe work-life balance for younger age. Because my age, we still want nice car, nice clothes, nice stuffs. But I heard like younger age are not interested in such stuff. They just want what they want. That is important thing. They don't want to do what they don't like.
So if we more divided into special fields, each task, then maybe our working hour is going to less.
Be less, yeah.
Hopefully.
Like after I get off work, I see like all these businessmen like suits and ties, and they just look so tired. I feel like they should quit the suits.
Why do we need so many signs, stamps? Stamps. So boss 1, boss 2, boss 3, boss 4.
Sometimes Japanese people follow the rule just because they're expected to do so, but because sometimes at work when I feel like some rules are unreasonable or I'd like some rules changed, I actually speak out. Like I ask my boss or I ask my colleagues, like, don't you think this is kind of unreasonable? Like, do you really actually want to do this kind of thing? And most of the time I get like a positive response, like, yeah, I actually don't want to do this, but because it's the rule, we kind of have to. And they don't say anything, even if they want those rules to be changed.
It would be cool to be more, I think, like flexible. It's encouraging being flexible, and elders being running how to deal with youngers, you know, because like used to be they actually didn't hit like this. That was all right. That was not that all right, but that was like part of the life, part of the culture, part of the, you know. But nowadays you cannot hit anything. If you hit it, that would be a problem, right? If you say too much out loud in a person, that would be also a problem, power harassment. What we say it, what we call. So like the elders, like they just frustrated, you know, they don't know how to deal with it. So they make the distance from the young generations. That's why there is a gap.
Actually, I'm very, very happy now. My job environment now is very, very satisfied because international environment and and good teamwork and can bring in many different culture in. So not just only Japanese society, but the other countries' society too. So can respect each other. I hope my current situation is going to be like Japanese normal society. So respect each other, not gender or not age or not like, well, maybe experience sometimes can teach newcomers, but like older or younger or the genders or I don't really support that.
It's no secret that the number of Japanese companies that have female leaders is very low, something like 10%. If women were in charge of Japanese work life, what would they do?
Well, to me though, the women society is changing. Then I think women can do the job more efficiently than men. I think so. Woman is like, how to say? Okay, do this, then finish. See you tomorrow. Women can do it better than men do, I guess. So sometimes I'm telling my husband, why you have to work so late? You're not efficient. You're not working efficiently. And he was very upset. No, I'm working efficiently. But if I were you, then I could do this way and then that way. But he just was upset. So I don't. It's difficult to say. Maybe he has to, but he doesn't realize that reality. I don't know. But that's yeah, my opinion. So I don't know.
Even the previous company and even the current company, I like my working style, and I don't need to change and I didn't change. Actually, I didn't change. Actually, almost same working style from I was doing at the previous company and yeah now. So I just for me nothing much different, and I don't think we need to change.
Luckily, I don't have to worry about income, my income, because my husband, has enough income. So sometimes my husband told me, your job is, for you, your job teaching Japanese is kind of hobby, right? It's not, but I like this job very much because I think I can teach Japanese even when I am 50 years old, or 60 years old, 70 years old. But we cannot make money for this job. But my husband sometimes told me, okay, なんだろう, so being independent, I mean, economically being independent is maybe not happy for my daughter. Maybe if she got married to a nice guy and just be homemaker, maybe that is happiness for her. That is not. What? old are you? ね。
While it was common for married women to become mothers and homemakers, more and more these women are now finding themselves entering back into the workplace.
It's really changing in a good way. Most of the women is going back to the former job, the office work, after after deliver the kids. And the company has to accept that too.
Many of my friends around here, they're just homemaker. They just take care of kids, but recently they are getting back to job, but it's only part-time.
I think my mom is living these days more relaxed than when she was young. When she, right after get married to my dad, when I was small, my mom always had to do the kitchen stuff and all the housework. If my dad doing some household, then my mom's reputation became really bad wife. So the woman had to take care of the kids. Women had to do the household. The man has to work outside. And well, just because my parents are get married in love, so they, treat them each other equally. But still, the society expectation is women should stay home, should do all the house thing. The men should go outside. But these days, society is changing. Women start working outside, so the men should help out the woman too. So my dad start doing clean the dishes, and he still cannot cook. But if my mom is really ill, he has to go out, feed himself. That's big changing. Because before, even though my mom was really sick, she had to cook for him. That's normal thing for a woman. But now she doesn't have to, oh, I'm ill, so please go outside and feed yourself. Okay, please buy me tea from convenience store than he does now. So I think the older generation, my mom generation, becomes more relaxed than before.
One thing that I came away with is that I wouldn't survive in most Japanese workplaces. But that's not saying much, since that'd be true for many Canadian workplaces as well. I'm more of an independent type of guy. That being said, I feel that in comparison to Japanese companies, Canadian ones would give me more say into how I did my job and give me a better work-life balance. Although I didn't officially ask this question in the interview, many people who I've talked to for this video and otherwise have said they would rather work for international companies than Japanese ones. So I ask this to you: what country are you from, and what are the pros and cons of working where you are? As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.